ABC7.
And tonight we're learning more about the man who wants to unseat Sheriff Richard Wiles. Tom Buchino stopped by the ABC7 studios today after accepting our invitation. Rick sat down with him for a one-on-one interview. Rick.
I'm joined now by the Republican candidate for El Paso County Sheriff, Tom Buchino. Mr. Buchino, thank you very much for joining us. We certainly
appreciate
Rick.
You. Thank you for the opportunity.
Making some time for us. Your opponent, incumbent Democrat, Sheriff Richard Wiles, we were told that he was going to decline our invitation to join us. We were told by his campaign that he is not doing any debates. So, Mr. Buchino, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Quickly, tell our viewers about yourself and why you decided to run.
Sure. Well, Rick, I'm not a politician. I've never served or aspired to be in the political arena. I'm a retired Army Green Beret Sergeant Major. I served and also led a counter-drug agency here on the southwest border. I'm a small business owner that specializes in training and advising local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies throughout the globe, operating based out of here in El Paso. And realistically, about 18 months ago, men and women in the Sheriff's Department, local, state, and other federal agencies started encouraging me, based on my knowledge of me, my experience of me advising and working with them, to consider running for sheriff based on the issues they felt Sheriff Wiles, my opponent, has let down the law enforcement community, the citizens of El Paso County. And so my wife and I made the decision to pray on it and make a decision if we would run for sheriff, and it led us to this point.
What would you say is the biggest difference between you and Sheriff Wiles?
Leadership. Mr. Wiles puts on his billboard banners proven leadership, but I'd have to attest who he's proven that leadership to. Possibly to the politicians downtown in the black chairs at city and county government, but not to the people or the law enforcement officers. I've been endorsed by all the badges, all the unions and associations within the law enforcement community to include our neighboring counties and their sheriffs and sheriff's department. So his leadership is obviously not dedicated directly towards the men and women of the law enforcement community.
The average Joe doesn't interact with the sheriff's department on a regular basis, but the department has accounts for about $70 million of the county's budget. It's the largest expenditure, biggest expenditure in the county's budget, accounting for about 25% of the total budget, around $70 million.
Yes, sir.
Sheriff Wiles has implemented some tax savings cuts, but running and maintaining the two jails continues to be a big expense. We only get about $80 per day to house federal prisoners downtown, yet each costs more than $100 per day. So where do you stand on the jail expenses, and where could you save taxpayers some money?
Well, first of all, in reference to the downtown jail, I believe it's integral to the security of this community, and I also believe that we can go back to the U.S. Marshals and the federal government and renegotiate to get closer to that $100. We're one of the few county law enforcement agencies in the state of Texas that are not receiving the per capita $100 for providing services and detaining federal prisoners. On any given basis, between 432 federal prisoners are housed in our jail system in El Paso County. Once the new annex extension out of Montana opens, I believe we can move more municipal detainees to that facility, freeing up more bed space. So I actually look at the possibility of increasing revenues to the county sheriff's department by bringing in more federal inmates, which ultimately allows the sheriff's department to grow, better jobs for the citizens of El Paso County, and so forth.
Sheriff Wiles is the incumbent. He's also a Democrat,
yes,
and
sir.
El Paso does lean Democrat for the most part. So how concerned are you about straight ticket voting? What can you personally do to change that, overcome that?
Well, we've been overcoming that simply by being in the community. When it comes to law enforcement, there's no Democrat or Republican, dear and R, prefix or suffix to any of the laws in the United States, the state of Texas, or our county ordinances. I would simply ask the men and women, the voters of El Paso County, to get to know the two individuals running for sheriff. I've been in the communities, from Tornillo all the way through to Fabens, Westwake, Anatil, all the areas. We're there. We asked the citizens of El Paso County one question. When a law enforcement officer, firefighter, or sheriff's deputy responds to help you and your family, do you ever ask them their political affiliation? Or do you just want the individual that's endorsed by law enforcement, that has the experience to best protect and serve this community? And that's how we defeat the straight Democrat ticket.
In one of your ads, you mentioned that you will reinstill values, ethics, morals, and honor at the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. So what exactly has Sheriff Wiles done to erode the values, ethics, morals, and honor of the department?
Well, for 24 years, we had a sheriff named Leo Samaniego, who was respected not only by the community, but by his officers. And that's currently not what we have here in El Paso County. If you look at the honor, the morals, the ethics, and the values, Mr. Wiles leads through fear, intimidation of his officers. He's recently taken a 15-year detention officer who was granted a permission by Leo Samaniego, with his authority as the county sheriff, to attend and graduate the detention officer training course and become a member of the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, although he did not have a GED or high school diploma. But recently, because this young man and many others are followers and supporters of the Tom Buchino for Sheriff campaign, those records were pulled. And immediately after reviewing his records and identifying that this young man, who has served for 15 years with honor and integrity to the Sheriff's Department, in the detention center, and also served on a special reaction team within the jail system, he was immediately removed of his uniform, his duties, and he's facing possible termination sometime this week. This goes against leadership. It goes against serving with honor. It goes against serving with integrity and loyalty to the individuals that you're charged with leading.
Last question for you. Let's talk about immigration.
Yes, sir.
You have a GOP nominee in Donald Trump that talks a lot about building a wall between Mexico and the United States. Where do you stand on the fence, immigration, and how legitimate are safety concerns along our border?
Well, we know that there's between $100 and $150 billion annually trafficked in illicit activity through the southwest border, and we're quite sure that El Paso gets a percentage of that. But unlike Donald Trump, I've actually worked in Mexico for the last 4 years, primarily Juarez and Chihuahua City. I've been privy to the violence over there, and I live in El Paso. I understand the culture, our rich Hispanic culture here in El Paso, and all you have to do is work in that area to realize why people are trying to come here. As a county sheriff, it's not my job, or it will not be my job, to enforce federal immigration law. We need to operate, and we need to get our silent community, or our shadow community, more involved, more understanding that their sheriff and the Sheriff's Department are here to protect everyone in El Paso County. And I think we can do that through special interest groups, working with the clergy, not to promote their personal or social agendas, but to simply get some information out and work with the communities that say, if you are a victim of crime, of trafficking, extortion, reach out to us. We're there to protect you.
Mr. Buchino, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Rick.
Best of luck with the rest of the campaign.
Thanks, sir.
Certainly. And again, I do want to stress that we did make an offer to the incumbent Democrat Richard Wiles, Sheriff Richard Wiles, and he declined our invitation to join today. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.